Hello, and welcome to True Story. Thank you for being here today and taking a moment to listen. Have you ever been humiliated by your own family over something they believed proved you were a failure? My Hermès bag sat in the center of the table at Lakewood Country Club, and my sister Vanessa was pointing at it like it was evidence in a crime. She said the stitching was wrong. And just like that, the entire table turned toward me. But that wasn't even the worst part. There were nearly 30 relatives watching, leaning in, whispering, judging, and I could feel it in the air, that quiet satisfaction people get when they think they've finally caught you pretending. Vanessa smiled in that careful way she always did and said a legal aid attorney like me could never afford something like Hermès, and a few people chuckled under their breath. Did they really believe that was all I was worth? I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. Not because I couldn't, but because I had spent years hearing the same thing in different words. But something about this moment felt different, and I think deep down, I already knew why. Someone behind me quietly took a photo of the bag. I heard a phone buzz. Then another. They were already sharing it, already turning me into a story before I could even speak. Have you ever felt that, when people decide who you are before you get the chance to explain? I looked at the bag again, and for a second, I wasn't in that room anymore. I was somewhere else, somewhere darker, quieter, filled with the scent of old paper and time. What I had discovered there was something they would never understand. Vanessa asked how much I had wasted on a fake. She even reached for her phone to prove me wrong. But just as she did, my phone vibrated in my hand. A private number. From France. I stood up slowly. Not to escape them, but to make sure they were all watching. Because something told me this call was not a coincidence. And if I answered it, everything they believed about me was about to fall apart. I stepped out onto the patio, but I didn't go far. I knew they were still watching me, trying to read my face, trying to guess what kind of call could interrupt a moment like that. The late afternoon light stretched across the stone floor, and for a second, everything felt strangely quiet. But inside, I could still hear them shifting in their seats, waiting. I answered. "Miss Whitmore," the voice said, calm and precise, with a distinct French accent. "This is Louis Bernard, from Hermès Heritage Division." I didn't react right away, and that pause mattered, because even from a distance, I could feel their attention sharpen, like something invisible had just changed. He continued, "I'm calling to confirm your private flight to Paris next Tuesday. The exhibition is fully prepared, and the committee has finalized the selection of your grandmother's collection." I turned slightly. Just enough for them to see my expression, but not enough to hear clearly. That was intentional. Because I wanted them to wonder what they had missed. "Tuesday works?" I said quietly. But that wasn't even the part that unsettled me. "The archive team is especially interested in the Birkin prototype under your name," he added. "They believe it may be one of the earliest experimental designs ever created." For a moment, I didn't speak. Not because I didn't understand, but because I realized something deeper. Something they hadn't even begun to suspect. Inside, I heard a chair scrape sharply against the floor. Someone was standing now. Someone was getting nervous. I ended the call and walked back in. No one spoke. Not Vanessa, not anyone. I sat down slowly and placed my hand on the bag again. "You were saying it was fake," I said. Vanessa opened her mouth, but nothing came out. And in that silence, I understood something important. They weren't laughing anymore. They were waiting for me to explain. And what I was about to tell them would change everything they thought they knew about me. I looked at Vanessa, then at the others, and for the first time, no one interrupted me. That silence, told me more than their words ever had. They weren't sure anymore, and that uncertainty was something I had never seen in this family. It started 3 years ago, I said, keeping my voice steady. When Grandma Evelyn passed away. Vanessa frowned, like she didn't understand why I would bring that up now. But that was exactly the point. They had never tried to understand anything that didn't look valuable at first glance. You all remember her apartment, I continued. The one you said smelled like dust and old paint. A few of them shifted uncomfortably. They remembered. But not the way I did. You took what you thought mattered, I said. The jewelry, the furniture, anything that looked expensive. Vanessa crossed her arms. And you got the rest, she said quickly, almost defensively. I nodded. Yes, I got the boxes you didn't even open. That was when something changed in their faces. Not understanding yet, but something close to it. I opened one of those boxes the night I got home, I said. Inside was a Hermès Kelly bag. Not new, not flashy, but it had a receipt from 1964. No one spoke. The second box had another. The third had more. And then I found the letters. Elise leaned forward. What letters? She asked, almost whispering. Letters from designers, I said. Handwritten notes, sketches, documentation. Vanessa shook her head slowly. That doesn't prove anything. It proves more than you think, I replied. Because Grandma wasn't just collecting these pieces. I paused, letting that sink in. She helped create them. This time, no one moved. The bag you called fake, I said, resting my hand on it again, isn't just real. It's a prototype, one that was never released. I could see it now, the shift. The moment everything they believed started to crack. But that still wasn't the part that changed everything. Because after I went through the last box, I found something hidden, something sealed, something meant only for me. And that was when I realized my grandmother had never been who they thought she was. No one spoke after that. Not Vanessa, not anyone. The air felt heavier than before, but this time it wasn't judgment. It was something quieter, something harder to ignore. Vanessa slowly sat down, her eyes still fixed on the bag, but she wasn't looking at it the same way anymore. She wasn't trying to prove me wrong. She was trying to understand how she had been so wrong. And maybe that was harder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I didn't tell you, I said quietly, because you never asked. That truth didn't sound loud, but it spread through the table like something breaking under the surface. Some of them looked away, others stayed still, as if moving would make it worse. No one argued, and that silence felt different from before. I reached for my phone and showed them a few images. Not everything, just enough. A museum catalogue, a signed letter, a photograph of my grandmother standing beside people they only knew from magazines. Vanessa shook her head slowly. Why didn't she ever tell us? I paused, because I had asked myself that same question more times than I could count. Maybe she did, I said. And we just didn't listen. That was when something shifted. Not in them, in me. For years, I thought I had to prove something to this family, that I had to earn my place. But standing there, I realized I didn't need their approval anymore. And maybe I never did. My phone started vibrating again. Messages. Calls. Questions that came too late. I didn't answer. I picked up the bag and stood. No one reached for it this time. No one questioned it. Outside, the air felt cooler, clearer. And for the first time in years, I felt calm. Thank you for listening and staying with me through this moment. Because even now, there is still one thing I found in that last box that I have not told anyone.